All right, so this is the video for day number 3. It's coming a day late, but the content's up on the website. Previously in day 2, we filled out this business canvas and answered the questions on the right side of the screen. So we talked about customer segments, customer relationships, sales channels, our value proposition, and we also talked about revenue streams. So for today, the things that we have left to cover to finish out this business canvas include key activities, key partnerships, key resources, and the cost structure. So let's just jump right in and let's walk through filling this out. We're going to lean on some of the content that is written in the post about this because I think it's very helpful for you to understand exactly what each one of these key activities and key partnerships, these key elements of your business, what each of them looks like, using an example that I put on the blog. So let's jump right in. So let's start with the end in mind here, and obviously we'll get an overall picture of things that we need to do once we understand what our cost structure is. So let's look first at the cost structure, and I'm going to pull in, let's see if I can do this, but I'm going to pull in some of the post content to look at real quick so that we can use it as a reference as we move forward. Okay, so one of the things that we look at in the post for today is a spreadsheet, sort of a chart. And let me zoom in here on the part that matters initially, okay? So what we did was we created a cost model for the sale of a fidget spinner. So I had a fidget spinner somewhere. I think my son took it. All right. If you're not familiar with a fidget spinner, they are little, they spin and you hold them between your fingers and you can, cause them to spin. There's a couple of different components in a fidget spinner. There is aluminum. There are ball bearings. There are plastic pieces that act as knobs that you will hold in your finger. A fidget spinner is a pretty simple toy that is used for people who are fidgety, right? It was initially something that would help folks with ADD. It'll give them something to do, give their hands something to do, so that they have enough stimulation so they can stay focused. So the theory goes with ADD. Anyway, the cost model here is for a fidget spinner. And we are going to break down a business that is selling fidget spinners and the cost model that needs to be in place to sell it and be profitable. And so we have a basic cost model here. And it includes 3 elements. And this is assuming that we are getting the fidget spinner completely assembled and we aren't worrying about the component cost. That's what this table is right here, okay? Now, what I also did is you can see that I have some columns hidden here on the left. I'm going to unhide them. Let's see if I can unhide them here. Row actions. Let's unhide all rows. Okay, great. Now what we have is more than just the cost of the fidget spinner, which would be this $1.10. We have all of the components that make up the total cost of the fidget spinner, which is that total there, right? So we have extruded aluminum, ball bearings, plastic knobs, paint, and like plastic decal. Let's say our fidget spinner has a design on it, all right? Now, when you're cost modeling, you need to think about the components that you have control over. And how much you need to pay for those components. Now, if you were designing a fidget spinner, or even if you were manufacturing one, you would have control over all of these different sub-component costs. And you could actually start working with them and reducing them as you start understanding how the cost of the fidget spinner is impacting the rest of your business. In our example, we are actually going to make the assumption that we don't have control over those components because we're not designing or manufacturing a fidget spinner. For the case of the 30-day business, we're just going to buy some fidget spinners wholesale and we're going to ship them to our customers. We're going to mark up the price and then we're going to ship them to our customers. Okay? All right, I just noticed a little error in the table here. The value summing up here was adding up all the components twice. So we were getting 2 fidget spinners for the price, and we were only paying for shipping and warehousing of 1 fidget spinner. I fixed that. All right, so here we have our number. So $1.45 is how much it's going to cost us to get a fidget spinner into the hands of a customer. Okay, this is our cost. What we're going to sell the fidget spinner for is a different number. Okay, so let's go further down here. Let's see if we can make it smaller. All right, cool. We're gonna make this smaller here. Awesome. So, and I'm going to correct the numbers here at the bottom as well. So we have 3 different scenarios, and so the blog post goes as follows. We talk about scenario. Let me just hide these to prevent you from getting distracted and looking forward and getting too excited about the answers before it's time. All right. So we have a new number here. It's actually $1.45. So let's fix that. So $1.45. Cool. All right. So scenario 1, it goes like this. We own a fidget spinner resale shop. Maybe we're doing it online, right? Yeah, we are doing it online because we're shipping, right? Shipping to our end customer. We sell fidget spinners, and we are selling them online for $5 a piece, okay? And every month we sell 20,000 fidget spinners, which is fantastic. That's great. You're selling 20,000 online. That means our gross revenue is $100,000 every month, okay? Our cost of goods is $1.45 per unit, which means we've done some math here. What we did, if you want to look at the formula, is we took our gross margin, which is $100,000, and from that we subtracted our total units, which is 20,000, and then we multiplied them by our cost per unit, which is $1.45. And so we subtracted that from our income, right? And that gives us $71,000 after our product costs. But then we have some business expenses on top of it. So we have another $15,000 in business expenses that we need to, again, reduce from our gross margin. So 71,000 minus 15,000 gives us $56,000 after all of our business expenses and our product costs are covered. Now that's how much money we're making a month. That's a killing, right? You're making a killing. Well, scenario number 2, somebody finds out you're making a killing in the market and they think they can also participate. And so they come in and they join in and they start selling fidget spinners too. And as a result, what they did was they came in at $4 because they wanted to take some of your sales. And that meant that you were selling half as many now. Okay, you're selling 10,000 instead of 20,000. Let's update the cost here. 145. Great. Okay. Which means you're only bringing in $40,000 a month when before you were bringing in $100,000. Like that's a $60,000 a month difference in gross revenue. That's crazy, right? Your product costs remain the same. You don't own the supply chain or the manufacturing, and you do not negotiate the component costs that go into the $1.45 that you are paying for your fidget spinners. As a result, that stays the same. We won't talk about any volume discounts you were getting previously being taken away from you, but that's a real possibility as well. So now, after you have your sales number, which is your gross revenue at $40,000, you need to take the cost of your products out of that. And that means you need to, that means you end up with $25,500. Then you subtract your business expenses here. And at the end of the month, you are left with 10,000. So 10,000 profit after previously you were making 56,000. That's a huge difference. All right, so with our normal business expenses being $15,000, we end up with only $10,000, down from $56,000 at the end of scenario 2, or this could be considered month 2. All right, now your competitor is thinking, well, how can I squeeze the other guy out of the market? So they want to squeeze you out of the market. And you know what they did? I'm going to show you what they did. It's kind of mean. All right. And this is scenario number 3. Oops. Let's unhide. There we go. Scenario number 3. Let's fix our cost here. $1.45 cost. Now, they lower the price by $1 more. And that means that every month where you used to be making $100,000 in gross revenues with a healthy gross margin of $71,000, the 71% gross margin here, you got your business expenses, and you end up with 56% profit margin, right, based on your revenue here. That's amazing. That's actually really good numbers. Well, your profit margin quickly went down to 10% profit margin, which quite honestly, after all business expenses, a lot of companies shipping physical goods are looking at about a 10% profit margin. But what happens in month 3, in scenario 3 here, is catastrophic to your business. You're able to sell the same number of units, but now you need to sell it for $3 a piece because your competitor decided they wanted to squeeze you out of the market. And so now you're only bringing in $30,000, same product cost, and that means that you're looking at, after all of your expenses, paying for the product, that $30,000 that you made has now been reduced to $15,500 after expenses. But now you got to keep the lights on, pay your contractors, employees, your lease on the building that you occupy, and then you pay yourself after all of that. And you get to pay yourself now in month 3, $500. Wow. That really, really hurts. And so you do what any responsible business owner would do, and you go another month, right? Should we go another month? I don't think we should. But if we did, this is what would happen. If you, for some reason, didn't learn your lesson in the first 90 days, then shame on you, but let's see what happens. So your competitor, you find out, is actually a toy reseller, and they sell hundreds of different toys, and they don't rely on one product to make all their money. And as a result, they're able to cut their sale price down and make their margins razor thin because they have so many different product lines, and they sell so many, like the total number of sales across all their product lines is enormous. And so they can get by with, in this case, making $5,000 on their fidget spinner product line. But because your only product is the fidget spinner that originally was bringing you $100,000 a month, because this is your only product, which, by the way, let's go back to this. You were making $100,000 a month, and the cost of the product was not that high. And so you were bringing home, even after paying your employees and paying to keep the lights on and all that stuff, you were making $56,000 every 30 days. That's like printing money. Amazing, right? But then a big player comes in and they decide that they'd like to play as well. So here we have the situation. All right, let's undo that real quick because that's scary and depressing. After you pay for your product cost, which is $1.45 for every per unit, and that's $14,500, right? After you pay that, your $20,000 of income, your revenue here is then reduced to $5,500. Now you got to pay the bills that historically, right, is $15,000 a month. That's what it costs to just do business operations for you. And if we were to say that that cost carried forward 1 month, here's the magic, boom, oh no. All right, so very unfortunate situation here, because now your company is running at a loss. And what you should have realized after the second month, or even before you decided to move forward in month 2, was to do some financial modeling with your cost structure. All of these margins matter a lot. All of these numbers matter a lot to the health of your business and its longevity and its permanency. Like, I guess you can just say none of it's permanent. But you notice what happened when a competitor entered the market. Okay, your sales went from 20,000 to 10,000, and no one else entered the market. Okay, maybe someone else would have. Imagine what would have happened if instead in month 3 you have to now split your 20,000 between 3 different players in the market. How quickly do we get into trouble there? So let's say it's 6,600. You're already losing when a third player comes into the market. And if you were to somehow stick with it, and even if you had 6,600 here as well, same, you're losing money even more. And so paying close attention to what the market's doing, paying close attention to the volumes that you're able to secure each and every period. So we used a month here. And then making sure that your price isn't actually doing things that are dictated by other people. In this case, we couldn't help but lower our price. And we lowered our price, but we still got half the market. But imagine what would have happened. Let's say we're going to stick with our price of $5. All right, cool. Well, we sold half the market, but let's say we can't sell half the market because we have a price that's $1 higher and it's identical price, and we can only sell 5,000, but we get to keep our margins. See what happened? It still doesn't help. So you can't just say, well, you know what? It's okay. Our volumes can go down, but we're going to stick with our price per unit because we'll put this one here as well. We're going to stick with our price per unit because that's our business model. That's how we support things. Well, that also means that you're going to be okay with selling fewer products. You're going to be a fourth of the market instead of half of the market, or even a third of the market in this case, right? $5,000. And so, and we're selling again for $5 here, okay? So there you have it, right? So you get to keep the price, and you get to decide if you're willing to take less of the market. Now, I don't even know how you convince these 5,000 people to buy you, because honestly, if you kept the price the same and your competitor had gone to $4 here in month 3, you're likely to have 2,000 people. Maybe you've got some really persuasive marketing. And by the end, on month 4, if you're still selling any of these, I'd be surprised, because you're selling it at now $2, because it went $4, $3, and then $2. You're selling it for $3 more than your competitor, right? There's no way that you're going to sell more than, what was that, a fifth of the market, and that's just because you're tricking them with good advertising, or what? I'm not sure what it is, but pretty quickly these things take a turn for the worst. Now, this is just some cost modeling. We were playing with some numbers here, doing some modeling here. This, of course, was fictitious. I honestly, personally don't know the cost structure of a fidget spinner. Like, for example, I don't know how much extruded aluminum costs, or ball bearings, plastic nuts, paint, or plastic decals like a sticker. I don't know what the actual cost of these things are, but this is how you kind of roll things up into a cost model so that you can plug them into the rest of your business financial models that you're making. So you have a good idea of what to expect financially. Are you going to be making a lot of money? Like, this is crazy. This is a killer deal. $56,000 a month is a lot of money. It's a lot of money, especially for a small operations, for a small business. But pretty quickly, like, wow, if you don't, pay attention to what the market's doing, your cost model is going to make you go bankrupt. All of a sudden, you've got negative money going, and you're, well, holy smokes, what's the sum of these numbers here, right? Let's see. If we do equals these, okay? Wow, right? Just in 2 months, you're $19,000 in the hole. And if we wanted to take the entire period, like, okay, over 4 months, what is the total outcome here? Right? Well, $39,000 over 4 months. Okay, great. Well, if you spent some of that money because it's just part of living, or if you're not paying attention, because this is what happens a lot in business, is that you're not paying attention, and you're used to $56,000. Well, then this would have been 104, right? Right here it would have been, $102,000 by this time, but it wasn't, and this would have been, $158,000 right here in profits. But instead, well, and then 158, right? Then you're up to $200,000, and instead you're at 40,000, basically. You're not broke. It's not negative. The bank isn't calling you and telling you can't pay your bills. But if you don't pay attention, you're going to look at this and say, "Holy smokes! I'm $160,000 shy of what I thought I was going to be at during this time." All right. All that to say, small business needs to pay very close attention to your cost structure. Big business can survive these types of setbacks. They can adjust, and they also have people that are paid to stare at it every day. And public companies actually have a legal obligation to report these numbers accurately. So you need to recreate all those obligations at a smaller scale for yourself. Now, I changed this. This video actually is different from what's on the post on the site. I will update that to follow what we've done here. So I guess when you go read it, it'll look the same. So I guess I didn't need to tell you it was going to be updated. But at any rate, there you go. There's some cost modeling that will help us kind of get an idea of what it is that we need to be thinking about when we look at our cost structure, okay? And going back over here, that is our cost structure, okay? We just talked about our cost structure, right? Next, let's talk about our key, what do we do here? Key resources, okay? So key resources, this is important, and it's something that we every business needs to think about. Okay, so let's go over here. Here is our chart previously. Right now we're going to talk about our key resources, and in order to do that, I think I can delete. Yeah, we do whole here. Sweet. Let's see if we can just do this. All right, this is from the previous portion where we were answering the right side of the sheet, okay? If you recall, previously we looked at our customer segment, relationship, sales channel, value proposition, and revenue streams. But today we're looking at key partners, key activities, key resources, and cost structure. We just looked at our key structures, okay? Already did that. Which means during this time, we're going to pretend like this doesn't exist so that we have a little bit more room. Let's do them red, yeah? A little bit more room to write about our key resources here. Okay, this is what we're talking about. One more time. There we go. All right, key resources. So we can think about this as some of the items or components that we need to have incoming on a regular basis that if our business didn't have them, our business could not run. Okay, so I gave some examples on the post. A good example here, like let's say we're running these, the following businesses, and then we'll think of some key resources that you cannot operate without them. So, first one, a bakery. Okay, I'm sure your wheels are spinning. That one's difficult, right? The next one, we're going to say a shoe company, right? They make shoes. The next one, okay, this is a TV show, The Office. Okay. The next one, we're going to use some bigger companies. We're going to say Apple, and another big company, which is, we're going to do a different example for this one, Microsoft. And then I guess we have a couple of other big ones here. Let's look at this one. Instead of Google, we'll do Facebook. Okay. All right, so let's think this through for just a moment. Okay, so some key resources for these types of companies. A TV show. I'm just going to write The Office. Okay, good. The Office. So a bakery, key resource here. Okay, you're probably guessing it. I'm just going to put it out there. Flour. Okay, a shoe company, shoe manufacturer. What's a key resource there? On mine, I put rubber. Make a shoe without rubber? I don't think so. Okay, a TV show, The Office. This is interesting. What are some of the key resources for a media production, right? You need camera crew, but is a cameraman a key resource, or any cameraman to perform that function? I mean, you just need a cameraman, not that specific cameraman. Okay, so think of it that way. And so thinking about key resources for The Office, it would have to be something that is basically you can't easily replace it. And I wrote Steve Carell. Did I spell that right? Oop. It's 2 L's and 1 R. Good. Steve Carell. Okay. Main character. Now, they did go on for like a season, I think, without him, but he made the show. Like, he was a key resource. And imagine halfway through a season, he's gone. You know, you'll have a very difficult time replacing him. Yes, there's like CGI now. It reminds me of Star Wars, the most recent Star Wars. Well, the Princess Leia, the Carrie Fisher, who plays that character, she died before they finished. And so, and they actually did an entire movie after she had died. And that's completely CGI. I don't know if you knew that. But a key resource needs to be replaced with similar or identical goods, or else your business is going to fail. Okay, Apple, the what I wrote here, what do you think would be a key resource? Okay, and I'm thinking about their ability to manufacture products. And so I wrote things, pretty simple stuff like glass, aluminum, right? Glass, aluminum, I guess silicon. Their suppliers need to have that because, again, these are key resources that are used to build components that go into the product and then are manufactured by others. I mean, Apple doesn't actually use glass and aluminum and silicon directly, but if those things face a shortage, then the products they make out of them cannot be manufactured, right? They'd have to find something else. Okay, Microsoft, like very heavily a software company. They have gotten into hardware, but they don't need a specific computer scientist, but they need computer scientists. Like, that is an input that their company requires, right? Computer scientists. Now this last one, Facebook. Okay, this is interesting. What is a key resource for Facebook? I mean, there's a lot, right? All of these different companies I've listed here, there's a lot of different key resources. You could say people. Okay, well, yes, every company needs a person or people to run it, right? Oh, electricity. Yes, of course. But we're talking about a key resource that they need that is maybe uniquely theirs, and that their business model wouldn't be their business model without it. And what I put here, this is interesting. Like, you know where Facebook makes all their money? That you haven't purchased anything from Facebook, I'm sure, unless you're buying ads. Okay, that's where Facebook's money comes from, is selling ads. And they sell ads to people who are trying to get product offerings in front of their users. And we're actually going to leverage this. It's a very, very well done system. And Facebook has a ton of people that they can get their attention and they can get your products in front of. But Facebook's key resource, in order for them to continue to offer this advertising opportunity to people who would like to advertise products, they must have people on their platform. And what gets people on their platform? People don't go there to look at ads, right? They are served ads, but they don't go there for ads. A key resource isn't even something that Facebook makes. One of the key resources are yours and mine, your stories and photos, right? Stories and photos. Interestingly, they don't pay you for them. Interestingly, they don't have control over the quality and the source, okay? And they have to actually expend a lot of time and resources doing curation. They do it with algorithms. They censor some content that is objectionable or offensive or obscene or overly violent. They do a lot of work to curate and to keep it clean enough so that people will stay on the platform. They try to make it a great experience, not because they have these altruistic intentions, because they just want you to have a good time, but because if you leave, they can't sell their main product, right? Which is access to eyeballs, access to people who have come to the platform to look at stories and photos of their friends and family, right? So if this resource goes away, then Facebook is going to have to create enough content for enough people. I mean, think about all the different entertainment preferences people have, and Facebook can't make all that. They aren't equipped to do it. They do not have a big enough production studio to do those types of things, right? So key resources, there you go. And that's how you can think about it. So one of the action items on the post that you should go work through is, what are key resources for your business? What kind of input, if it was disrupted, would disrupt your business operations, okay? What would you do if it happened? How do you think about those things? All right, so key resources. Now, we were going through examples that I had for key resources. We don't need to go through examples per se, because I think it's pretty well understood what key resources are. But I do think that key activities is crucial, because we might think of key activities as something that might not apply, okay? But it does. It applies to everybody. And it's not just the key activities to sell your product. And as I explained in the post, there's a lot of key activities that will help preserve the health of your company going forward. Your business needs your attention and your love and care, right? And you need to be a wise, leader and orchestrator of all of the different functions in the business, and that includes adopting some, habits and policies and different initiatives in order to keep your business in business. As we talked earlier, the cost structure, you need to pay attention to that stuff, and you need to strategically put in place the right safeguards so that you don't fall victim to a situation like that I showed you, where you're pushed out of the market and then you're left just, in debt. And you really wanted to become wealthy from running a business and, providing value. It's not ideal. So anyway, let's talk about the key activities. And okay, so you can think about key activities in your business as including certain things, right? And I like to use the different elements of a supply chain, because it actually it represents the different elements of any business if you can map it. Okay, so the different elements of a supply chain, there's the buy, make, and then you gotta transport it. Buy, make, move, and then you gotta store it, and then you gotta sell it, okay? But then there's another piece of the business, which is you got to service it. So buy, make, move, store, sell, service, okay? Now, these are all of the different steps or components of, or the activities that every business has to do. And buying and making, these are sometimes there's overlap. There's definitely overlap, because if you are just buying a wholesale product, then making it is essentially bundling a product ready for sale. Or if you are not buying the product, you're making it yourself, there are still things that you need to buy, for example, components, right? They all kind of add together. So the key activities of your business: buy, make, move, store, sell, and then service. Each one of these needs to be thoroughly thought out. And so let's use the example that we were looking at earlier, and walk through each one of these components. Okay, buy, make, move, store, sell. The example we were using was actually the creation of software, right? And you think, okay, well, what do you got to buy in software? You just got to write the code. Well, maybe you buy the code, but there's also money to be spent on certain access or platforms, right? What am I buying? I'm buying perhaps a component of software. So remember, this was the Fortnite example, okay? And for buying, I know that there is a developer account that requires you to buy something, right? On the making side, key activity there. And so buying, this doesn't happen that often, actually, in this example, okay? Oh, I take it back, but because one of the elements of succeeding in this business model is buying ads. So you buy ads in order to make a sale, which has a lot to do with, this component here, the money it costs. But this is the buying activity that is an ongoing buying activity. Okay, the making. So this is, write code. Right? What are some of the components of writing good code? What are some of the components of designing the user interface? Do you need logos or artwork? Think about what that make phase requires, right? And part of that might be you're buying it, right? So storage. Okay, now this is not physical storage, but where is this thing located? And here's an interesting thing. Let's say I have a mobile application, and there is a window, like a little box here, and it says news, right? And it's broken up with some text here and an image, some text here and an image, text here. Right, the idea, right? And it kind of scrolls up and down like this. Well, my question is, where are these things being stored? Where's the image? Where are the news stories coming from? Right? What storage are you using? Now, this is physical, right? Physical and digital storage. All right, we didn't talk about the move component, but I think we should, because moving happens here and it happens here. So moving happens when you write the code and you push it onto a couple of different locations. So we're going to put move here. You're going to push to the App Store, but you're also going to push the data up into the cloud, right? Like you upload it, you push the data to your storage provider, and that's moving, right? And then you finally move again, which you don't really own, is you're gonna push to customer. Okay, so you're gonna push it to your customer, or they're gonna download it from the App Store, right? And so that one you don't manage directly, but you do manage this part, and you do manage that part, and you got to make sure that you are keeping all of this stuff fresh, and you got to make sure that this stuff works, right? You can't let any of these things fail, or else this page is going to load, and it'll have a little, question mark here, and a question mark here. It'll have a question mark if you wrote the code right. If you didn't, then it'll just crash your app. Okay, so understanding where your data is, how to move it into the right place so that it's there when it's needed, like when your app loads, that is crucial. Okay. For my storage solution, I'm currently using Box. I don't like it much because there's a problem with like legacy file support. I liked Dropbox, but different story. I do have a storage in place. I use iCloud storage as well, and then of course I have the App Store as a place that it stores the app offering, and then the customer just downloads from there. Okay, buy, make, move, store, and then selling. Okay, so selling this thing, key activities here. I need to do some advertising, right? So I need to do the key activity here is ads, and where I'm going to do that is on Facebook. And the actual sales are going to happen on the App Store, okay? And this is going to be hopefully like a flywheel where they just keep, I'm able to just keep pushing people through this process. New people. I mean, I guess people wouldn't go back to the ads on Facebook, but once they purchase in the App Store, then I can do in-app purchases, IAP, right, to upsell them even more. Okay, and then the service component. Now this is going to be interesting because there's a couple of different channels where they can receive service, and for this Fortnite example, I would love to limit the amount of support, right? I mean, they probably don't want to call someone. Mobile apps don't have that. But for the service component, like an FAQ, frequently asked questions on the website, they have there's the app review place. They can leave questions if they would like to. And then I would just say there's like a form on a website. Not even an email address. Just a form on the website that they can submit, and then that just goes into a queue. So I don't have to worry about creating an email response system. All right, so those are some of the key activities. And now thinking through these things, very crucial. I know we spent a lot of time on cost structure. We're going to try to spend less time on the key activities and key resources. I do want to talk quite a bit. Not sure if I'm going to do a separate video. We'll see how far we can go. But I do want to talk quite a bit about key partners. And so, but before we get there, let's close out on key activities. Your key activities, you got to think of this as like you wake up and what is it that my job requires, or what does this business require? And how can I create some structure and some automation around it and some predictability so that I don't go crazy, but the business also stays healthy. Which one of those activities can be handed off? And that's where key partners come in. Who do I trust? What key activities, if I put in place, will prevent catastrophe? And I said I would talk a little bit about this, and so I will. So Apple is always used as an example of a company that has really figured out supply chain, which is buy, make, move, store, sell, and service. In fact, they are ranked so high on the best supply chains in the world that they aren't even included in the ranking. Apple and Procter & Gamble, and Procter & Gamble makes all sorts of consumer packaged goods like toothpaste and deodorant and like razor blades. Like they own a whole bunch of brands. Procter & Gamble does, and so their supply chain is crazy. But Procter & Gamble and Apple have the best supply chains in the world, and they are ranked outside of the normal ranking. So it goes Apple and Procter & Gamble, they just say, oh, like 5-star rating, and then it'll go number 1, and then it goes down the list. So they don't even count. That's how good they are. They're like the model. Well, there's 2 events that I point out in the post, so go read them. But there was an event that happened in March of 2011. Okay, and then there was another event that happened. It's still happening, I guess, which is it was Q4. It was a calendar quarter 4, right? 2019. to, we'll say calendar quarter 3, 2020. Now, what this period is what matters the most here, but this was interesting, and I'll just put, I'll try to summarize like this. There was an earthquake in Japan in March of 2011, and it destroyed the supply chain of a lot of companies. Even big companies really struggled during this time because Japan was a very crucial supplier of battery technologies. And if you had a product that was that relied on a battery, then your supply chain was absolutely disrupted. The interesting thing here was that Apple, at the exact same time, announced the iPad 2. Okay, and this happened, I think they announced it on February 28th or something like that, and they started shipping on March 11th. Okay, now March 11th is the same day that the earthquake happened. So the Japan earthquake. And you think, oh, that's not good. Now what? Because Apple just announced it and they're going to ship. And if you know anything about Apple's financials, like when they do their earnings call, they always say they have 2 to 4 weeks of inventory. And that's a good thing, because then that means they're not storing like months and months and months of supply in a warehouse and paying for all of that storage space. But they don't want to have so few that there's no flexibility in bringing shipping orders if like demand goes up, right? So they're kind of mitigating on both sides. Well, the month of March and that first quarter, they sold, and I just want to make sure that I get the right number here. They sold 2.5 million units in the first 30 days. Okay, so 30 days, how many weeks is that? It's approximately 4 weeks. So you'd think, okay, if they had their 2 to 4 weeks, being conservative, they're on the high end, 4 weeks, that means after 30 days, they would have been out. And that the next 30 days, they're just going to be kind of hosed waiting for batteries to put into their iPads to ship. Well, that isn't what happened. They actually continued to sell at the same rate for the next 3 months. And the following 3 months, they sold an additional 11 million units. And you're like, you're probably thinking, well, hold on a second. Would they have extra batteries somewhere? No, they didn't have batteries because they don't store any of their own inventory. Their suppliers need to make it. It's just-in-time manufacturing. How did they do this? Well, that's part of the secret sauce of Apple. Like, their supply chain is a trade secret. But what they had done, and is part of their key activities, is they actually prepare and they design their supply chain specifically for things like the Japan earthquake. Okay? So the Japan earthquake happened, and it's just like, oh, trigger, supply chain catastrophe response number 6. And then, okay, yeah, that one means Japan shuts down. And this is what we all need to do next. Their supply chain wasn't interrupted. They sold record iPads. This is the second generation iPads. And if you know anything about the history of Apple's sales trajectory after new product launches, the iPad actually sold way more units in the first 2 generations than any other product Apple has ever shipped. It's the number one fastest growing Apple product ever. And this is when that was happening, where Apple's scaling like crazy, and they're trying to make sure that this really killer product is getting into the hands of their customers, and they made it happen. They got their 11 million units out. That's actually more per month than the original month, right? Because 3 months, if it was 10 million, it'd be 3.3, but it's a little bit more than that, right? 3.5 or whatever, okay? Amazing. And that's because part of their key activities is preparing and designing specifically for these types of things. Now, obviously, we aren't all big enough to do something like that, but we can do something as part of our key activities to mitigate risk of a future event, especially in the world today where everyone's kind of confused about how how COVID is going to impact their business. You never know, but putting the right activities in place in your business, making sure that you're thinking about what could happen, preparing for it, but also leveraging that preparation to actually enhance your offerings. The fact that Apple did this wasn't because it wasn't that they were just waiting, right? If they had another battery supplier on as part of the supply chain, that other battery supplier wasn't just waiting for a catastrophe. They actually were producing batteries along with the Japanese battery suppliers, so that if they needed to, they could just shift or reallocate the resources in the event of a catastrophe. But what else they could do, which is awesome, is they could actually have these two suppliers keep each other honest. And they could tell them, look, I'm going to allocate more resources to the other guy if you start lagging in quality, or if your prices start to change. And it helps incentivize them to do better business, and the quality goes up for both and the prices improve, right? Which means they know that they're doing these things right. And so thinking about in your business what key activities and what type of relationships will help you achieve this is vitally important. All right, so let's get to the last section here, key partners. There was another example about COVID. You've got to go read that one in the post, okay? Had at AirPods Pro. All right, so key partnerships. I'll figure out how to draw lines here. Key partnerships, there we go. Key partners. I actually wrote an entire post specifically about key partners. There is a small element here, but thinking through that again, the buy, make, right? Move, store, sell, and service, okay? Here's the main question that you need to ask yourself. When you are, who are your supplier partners? Okay? And not just like, oh, it's someone that provides cotton. No. Who specifically is your partner? Now, remember, we're trying to do these things in 30 days, so we got to know the answers like right away. Who, for your business ideas, who are your suppliers? Who are you buying from in order to make your product? And that could be buying things related to the product itself, or buying things that enable you to make the product. A good example is software. Who are you buying software from? Okay, write that name down. Who is it? Okay, as you're making it, are you making it? This is the second one. Like who makes it? Right, and there's a couple of different elements here. Right, we have the design phase. And then we have the build phase. Who's going to build it, right? And if there's components, we would look at it like who's going to assemble it, okay? Who, and then ask this question of yourself, who specifically? Who is doing this? Who's your partner here? Or are you doing it yourself? Because if you don't have a partner for it, then yeah, you're signing up for it. You're doing it yourself, okay? Moving it. Who's moving? Who's moving the product to and from? If you have a physical good, who's moving it from the supplier to the builder or the manufacturer, the assembler, right? The component supplier to the builder, manufacturer. And then from there, who's going to inventory this thing? Or is the manufacturer going to keep it there? And they'll house it until it's ready to ship. But once it's ready to ship, who's going to move it from there, right? So who is your partner? Now, we talked a little bit about this earlier. We have these third-party logistics people. I think I called it 3PP earlier. It's 3PL. Sorry, 3PP was some other thing. Who's your partner? There's a lot of third-party logistics and companies that cost some money. But again, there's a lot of solutions out there that if you automate it, this makes your life easier. You'll make less money. Right, the more you bring in house, the higher, I guess, profit margins you'll have, but you have obviously more responsibility. similar to that fidget spinner thing where we had $1.45, and then we had all these like costs below it, like, oh, the aluminum was 75 cents, or like the paint was like 5 cents, and the sticker was like 3 cents. Well, maybe, but you didn't have access to any of this stuff. You only had access to this. And so maybe if you have, the principle goes, if you have access to it, maybe you could actually reduce that to 25 cents for the aluminum. And maybe you could reduce that to, 2.5 cents. And this could be 1 cent, right? All of a sudden, your profit margins are dramatically different, and you're taking home more money while selling the same number of units, okay? And that's just a general principle, and that's why I bring that up with the third-party logistics partners. They can help solve some of these complex problems. Like if you don't know how, again, back to the fidget spinner, if you don't know how to negotiate or find good component suppliers, or if you don't know how to manufacture something, that's fine. You can buy the product wholesale. Your margins will be a little bit different. And quite honestly, they might have done a really good job and you're getting it for a great deal, and you wouldn't have been able to get better margins if you built it yourself. Right? These are professionals that are doing this full time, and unless you're confident you can do better, don't try to be an expert outside of your expertise. As your company and your business grows, then let's bring in partners that will help scale and bring them inside. But until we can bring them inside, we can work with external parties. Okay, storage. Now here's a cool thing. These 3PLs actually. These third-party logistics folks, if you partner with the right one, they can help you with storage and moving, right? So if you need to go from your manufacturer to a warehouse, then to your end customer, third-party logistics folks can help you manage all of that in a very straightforward way. So if we end up implementing a deal like that, an idea like that, we should go through the process of working with the third-party logistics, see what that's like. But that's if that idea goes forward this month. We'll do it in a future month. We'll see. Okay. Key partners for selling, and like, who is it? Who, or I guess like, I'm gonna say what company, or maybe we should call it, or platform. Who's gonna help you? And what I say in the post is advertising as well. Like, who's gonna help? Who's your advertising partner? Who's your selling partner? Okay, and I went through, and in the post you can see this. I answered these questions honestly as I answered them honestly as far as I had the information, but there are some unknowns that I need to go put in some work to find the answers for. But what I said for advertising and selling is that I said I'm going to partner with Facebook, because there's at least two elements that you need to have in place to succeed when you're advertising and selling, and you need to have eyes and ears, and you just need a lot of them. Okay, people that you can show things to. And for Facebook, check, right? And then we need to have information about the eyes and ears, right? And Facebook happens to know a lot about the people that use their platform, and so they're able to help you target your ads to the right demographics, right? So who is your advertising and sales partner? Okay, service partner. Okay, there's an example I gave in the post on partnerships. Your service partner, or are you doing it yourself? Right, depending on the product, do you want to have like a personal touch, or in the post I talk about me versus a partner in providing services, and I gave two scenarios. One of them is a customer wants to return a bottle of supplements, and because the seal was broken, and they just would like a replacement. Okay, they want the product, they're not going to take the supplements that came with a broken seal. Totally reasonable. And they call you up, and then you forward that over, and the partner says, absolutely yes, and they process the return. Okay, that was scenario number one. The scenario number two was someone just didn't like the product. They opened it all up, They didn't like the product. They call you up, they call, and instead of forwarding it to the partner, you make a decision to just, process the return. And the return shows up at your partner, and they say, wait a second, the entire product is it's at the quality standard that we find acceptable, and so we would never accept this return. And you say, well, I'm trying to make my customers happy. They didn't want it. They didn't like it. It was like, okay, well, you agreed that you would only return defective or the broken items. So either there's a manufacturing defect or there's a design defect or something, but our standards, and you checked off on them, our standards have been met in this product, but now they've returned them and they opened all of it, and we can't resell this. So now who's going to swallow the cost? And so now you have a disagreement, right? So, and then the scenario goes, we got to get on the phone. Let me see if I can draw a phone again. I'm getting better at it. Am I? All right. Nope, I'm not. That's a phone? It's not a phone. They get on the phone and they say, we gotta hash this out. What are we gonna do now that we'll just draw an iPhone? Those are a lot easier. Home button. Cool. What are we gonna do about future occurrences of this specific kind? And then you write it into a contract. Now, it's important to talk with your partners that are providing support or any other service, okay? And in this case, it was important because you made a decision that was financially detrimental. Like, you not only returned the product, right, but you wanted to get a credit for that purchase. Okay, like you're essentially wanting the value of the order returned given to you. Because you had to process the return, you paid the money to your customer, right? You returned the money already. They returned the product. You returned the money. Now the supplier's like, well, I don't want this, and it's not broken. So your policy on returns, I don't agree with, right? So sorting through that is crucially important with your partners. Okay, contracts and things like that. I think we talk about contracts later on, but those are contracts relative to selling your product. There's a lot of contracts that you would need to have in place, and a lot of these partners will have some template documents that you can start from. But mapping out exactly who does what in these partnerships is vital. All right, that is the end of the day 3 video. The walkthrough and all the activities. Hopefully you had a chance to look at your business canvas here and fill out all of these different pieces. What is your value proposition, right? What are you bringing to the market? And who is it for? We talked about the jobs to be done. That's awesome. Very, very powerful way to look at customer segmentation. Who in the world wants to solve a problem that your product is uniquely capable of? Who's going to hire your product? For what job? What are the sales channels we're going to leverage? Right? It's very similar. Like the channel that you choose can also help you sell. And that's what we talked about over with our key partners right here on the selling piece. Okay. Your revenue streams, there's a lot of different ways to monetize your stuff. And, an all of the above option is definitely what everyone wants to pick. But you got to make sure that you're doing the things that are possible first and that you're capable of first. And then you can grow into the all of the above as your capabilities grow and as money starts coming in. Customer relationships. We also talked a little bit about that over here in service, but this is how do you service your customers? Who does it? How do you do it? Your product or offering is going to have a huge impact on your decision of the type of customer support you're going to give. Is it phone support? Are they able to talk to you live? Are they able to, video conferencing? That'd be great, right? Or do you really want it to be sort of a cold and distant relationship? And that's what they're expecting. So we had 2 scenarios. One was a subscription. One was an app. The subscription service, we want to have a nice warm feel, a very, you're part of the family type thing. So yeah, like live support works there. On the app side, they don't really want to talk to someone. They just want to find the answer because maybe they just have a small question. So having very good documentation, having a forum, having an FAQ, and being very responsive, at least in those digital channels. If like an app review shows up on the store that has a question included, that type, there's different ways to do it. So what's appropriate for your product is is what you need to figure out. Okay. And today we talked about all these other things that I don't need to summarize, but I'll just say that all of the partnerships, activities, and resources, they all flow into your cost structure here. Okay. And if your activities are expensive and your resources are expensive and your partners are expensive, but your value proposition is cheap because you know your customer base, wants affordable stuff, you'll go bankrupt before you start. And I'm not saying that you should charge, I'm not saying like, oh, increase your money. I'm not saying that necessarily. It shouldn't be higher than it should be. But what I am saying is that you need to drive down the costs of these other areas, or else you're going to have a problem where you're out of options and you're out of business. All right. And that looks different for each one. And we'll talk a little bit more about these strategies as we implement them throughout the rest of the month. So, all right, that is the third one. That was a lot of fun. And I always think that I'm going to take 30 minutes, but it ends up being over an hour each time. Hopefully that's all right with you. But we're doing what's required, and I'm excited for the next piece. So day 4 is all about the total addressable market, and how big is your opportunity, or how big is the whole world of opportunity, and what piece of it's yours. So we'll do that analysis coming up in the next section for day 4. So, all right, we'll talk to you soon.